The old man in the hospital bed had already signed his own death warrant long before the machines began to beep erratically around him. His eyes, once sharp enough to command fleets and end lives without hesitation, now burned with quiet suspicion at every soul who dared step into his room. He trusted no one. Not the doctors, not the guards stationed outside, not even the government officials who claimed to protect him. But the strangest part was this: the one person he refused to even look at, was the only one who truly knew who he was. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroes among us, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Admiral Victor Hale had once been a legend in the shadows. A decorated Navy SEAL commander who rose through the ranks with a reputation forged in silence and blood. Missions that never made the news. Decisions that saved thousands but haunted him for decades. Now, in a quiet, high-security hospital in Virginia, he lay dying, his body failing him in ways no enemy ever could. The illness was aggressive, ruthless, and unstoppable. Doctors called it a rare neurological degeneration, but Victor knew better. He had seen things in classified labs, heard whispers of experimental exposures. He suspected this wasn't just disease. It was consequence. His room was guarded around the clock, yet he felt more vulnerable than ever. Every nurse who entered was met with cold, scanning eyes. He measured their steps, their tone, their breath. He trusted no one because trust, in his world, had always come with a price. And then there was Nathan Cole. Nathan was different, though at first glance, he appeared almost invisible. A quiet nurse in his early 30s, with tired eyes and a calm presence that didn't demand attention. He spoke little, moved gently, and never reacted to the Admiral's harsh silence or cutting glares. While other staff rotated in and out, uncomfortable with Victor's intensity, Nathan remained consistent. Always assigned. Always present. Victor hated that. He would refuse medication when Nathan brought it. Turn his head when Nathan adjusted his blankets. Once, he even ripped out his fore just to avoid being touched by him. The doctors blamed paranoia. But Victor's instincts had kept him alive through war zones and betrayal. If something felt wrong, it usually was. Days turned into weeks, and Victor's condition worsened. His hands trembled more violently. His vision blurred. The nights became unbearable, filled with fragments of memory, gunfire, smoke, the faces of men he couldn't save. He began to lose track of time, slipping in and out of consciousness like a ship drifting off course. But Nathan never left. He was there in the early mornings, adjusting machines before the others arrived. He was there at night, sitting quietly in the corner, documenting vitals with a patience that felt almost personal. He never forced conversation, never pushed comfort. He simply existed beside the Admiral, like a silent witness to his decline. And that silence began to change something. One evening, as a storm rolled across the Virginia sky, the power flickered briefly in the hospital. Backup systems kicked in instantly, but for a moment, everything went dark. In that darkness, Victor's breathing became erratic, panic rising in his chest like a tidal wave. The machines beeped faster, louder, echoing his fear. And then, a hand rested gently on his arm. Not forceful. Not invasive. Just steady. When the lights returned, Nathan was there, closer than ever before. His expression wasn't clinical. It wasn't distant. It was familiar. Something in Victor's mind shifted. A memory stirred. A desert night. A failed extraction. A young soldier pinned under debris, bleeding out while chaos erupted around them. Victor had made the call to leave him behind. It was the only logical choice. The mission demanded it. But the boy's eyes, he had never forgotten those eyes. Victor's voice, weak and cracked, broke the silence of weeks. He whispered a single name. Nathan froze. For the first time, the quiet nurse's composure faltered. His eyes widened slightly, and a flicker of emotion passed through him like a shadow. Victor's heart pounded. His instincts screamed. He knew. Nathan Cole wasn't just a nurse. He was that soldier. The one left behind. The one who somehow survived. The realization hit like a storm crashing through Victor's fragile body. Guilt, long buried under years of duty and justification, rose to the surface with unbearable force. He had spent decades believing that decision was necessary. That it was leadership. That it was survival. But now, the consequence stood beside him. Alive. Silent. Watching. Victor expected anger. Revenge. Accusation. But Nathan said nothing. Days passed, and the unspoken truth hung heavy between them. Victor no longer resisted Nathan's care. He allowed the medications, the adjustments, even the quiet presence that once unsettled him. But inside, a war raged. He needed to understand. Why was he here? Why now? And most importantly, why no anger? The answer came not in words, but in actions. Nathan continued to care for him with unwavering dedication. He stayed longer than required. He ensured Victor was comfortable during the worst nights. When pain surged, he was there. When confusion set in, he remained calm. Not once did he show resentment. It didn't make sense. Until one night, when Victor's condition took a sharp decline. The doctors rushed in. Machines screamed. Oxygen levels dropped. The room filled with urgency and controlled chaos. Victor drifted on the edge, his body shutting down piece by piece. And through it all, Nathan stayed at his side. Not as a nurse. But as something more. Victor's fading mind struggled to hold on, and in that fragile space between life and death, he finally understood. Nathan wasn't there for revenge. He was there for closure. Not for himself, but for Victor. Because the truth was something Victor had never allowed himself to face. That decision, all those years ago, hadn't just shaped Nathan's life. It had broken Victor's soul. Nathan had lived. He had fought his way back, rebuilt his life, and chosen a path of healing instead of destruction. He had become the very thing Victor could never be, someone who saved lives without taking them. And now, he had returned, not to punish, but to forgive. Victor's final moments were no longer filled with fear. The suspicion that once defined him faded away, replaced by something unfamiliar. Peace. As his breathing slowed, his eyes locked onto Nathan's. For the first time in decades, there was no command, no authority, no defense. Just a man, asking for forgiveness without words. And Nathan gave it. Not through speech, but through presence. Through care. Through the quiet decision to stay until the very end. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Take a second to like, share, and let others experience this moment too. And before we end, write "Forgiveness heals" in the comments if you believe that even the deepest wounds can be mended. The machines eventually fell silent. Admiral Victor Hale, a man who had trusted no one, took his final breath beside the only person who truly saw him, not as a legend, not as a leader, but as a flawed human being. And in that quiet hospital room in the United States, something extraordinary happened. Not a battle. Not a mission. But redemption.